Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Moto G4 Play, and this is likely the least expensive universal unlocked phone you can buy at the moment. The one you're seeing today costs $150 here in the United States, and if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can get it for $99, and that's a pretty good price for a phone that works on every major carrier, including Sprint and Verizon, as well as AT&T and T-Mobile, and many other carriers throughout the world. So we'll be putting this thing through its paces here in just a second to see what $150 or $99 buys you, but I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, this is on loan from Motorola, so when we're done with this review, we'll be sending it back to them. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. All right, let's take a look now at the hardware. There are three different versions of this phone. This is the low-cost version called the Play. There is also the regular G4 and the G4 Plus. When you go to those other two versions, you pay a little more, but you get a little more. So those two phones have 1080p displays versus a 720p on this one. They have faster processors, better cameras. The Plus also has a fingerprint sensor, so you will get a little more when you spend a little more. But again, we always like to look at the low-cost version on this channel as a priority, so that is what we're going to do today. Now, this has a 720p 5-inch display, which is not as high resolution as a 1080p display might be, but when you are only at a 5-inch display, it actually looks pretty nice and sharp text. Everything looks kind of retina in quality. I'm quite pleased with how the display looks, as well as how nice it is to read from, and some good viewing angles on it also. So you've got a nice IPS touch display here. It's powered by a Snapdragon 410 processor and Adreno 306 GPU, so not a powerhouse, but I think it's fine for the kinds of things that people might do with a phone at this price point. So it does seem to render web pages pretty nicely. It should be fine for email and other things too, so I'm not going to ding it too much on the performance. 16 gigabytes of storage, which is good to have on a phone at this price point, and 2 gigabytes of RAM, so it's up to par, I think, for what most standard Android apps will require, including some games. We'll be trying out a few games on it as well. So it's definitely a good basic transportation phone that I think will accomplish quite a bit for you out in the field. On the back here, we've got a camera. There's an 8-megapixel sensor along with a flash. It does a pretty decent job of taking pictures, as you can see here. Nothing spectacular, but it's good enough, I think, for a phone at this price point. Low light isn't great, as one would expect it would not be on a $99 or $150 phone, but it can take a photo when you need to take a photo. And video quality isn't great either. It's 1080p at 30 frames per second, but it's adequate enough if you are out in the field looking to take some pictures. And on the front, we've got a 5-megapixel selfie camera. It does a pretty decent job. Nothing spectacular again, but good enough. Now, there is a way to augment its 16 gigabytes of storage. You can add an SD card to the mix here, so you can pop open the back of the phone here like so. There's a little spot to get your fingernail in on the corner there, and you can slide in an SD card into the slot over here. There's also the SIM card slot here as well. And remember, this works on just about every single carrier here in the United States, so you do have a lot of options for choosing a carrier or even switching carriers whenever you want. As long as you have an active SIM card, you can just slide it in here and you are off and running. The battery is also removable, so you can, if at some point the battery goes bad or you want to get an extra battery, you can have one battery charged and another one in the phone, which is something we don't see on some of the more expensive phones these days. Not too much on the control side, nothing on this side. You've got your power and volume rocker over there, a headphone jack, which, as we know, is starting to be lacking on some higher end phones. You got a regular headset adapter there, and then a USB micro adapter down there for charging the phone, as well as providing some OTG capabilities. This does not support fast charging, but the other models in the line do. I think the Plus has a fast charging option to it, but on this one you'll be charging at regular USB speeds. Now, unlike the G3 that this one replaces, it is not being billed as a waterproof phone. They're calling it splash-proof, but not waterproof. The last version, they actually encouraged us to dunk them into buckets of water and whatnot. This one, they did not provide that same encouragement to. So I think it'll survive getting a little wet, but I would not consider this a waterproof phone, just to be safe on there. I'm quite pleased, though, with its video playback performance. I've got a 60 frames per second video here running at 720p, because, of course, that is the maximum resolution of the display here. Runs great, really nice frame rates on this thing. It really feels decent for watching videos on YouTube and on Plex and other services, so I think you'll have a very good multimedia experience with it. You saw how well it browsed the web earlier, so I think overall it's going to do just fine for the things that you're going to throw at it. It supports LTE 4G bands on all of those major services, and it supports wireless N within your home or somewhere else that has wireless. It does not support wireless AC, at least on this version of the device. I was also quite pleased with its gaming performance, so I know a lot of you will probably be looking at this phone as a phone to get for a kid, and you'll be pleased to hear that it does run Minecraft here quite well. It's pretty zippy, actually, all things considered. So a bulk of the Android games out there really target phones at this general specification level. So it's really going to do well for most of the casual games that you'll find on the Android store. There are, of course, games that won't run as well on this phone, but I think a majority of them will, especially games like Minecraft and Goat Simulator and many others out there. Now, I did run the 3D Mark Slingshot test, which is a high-end graphic performance benchmark. I only got a score of 53 on that one with this phone, compared to 121 on the Blue R1 HD, which Amazon is subsidizing at only $50. So that Blue phone is a little faster, but it doesn't have the universal carrier compatibility that this one does. There's always a trade-off to be made, but as I mentioned, a lot of the casual games out there really won't run any better on that phone versus this one. So really look at what you need for your carrier compatibility, but that Blue phone will perform slightly better, but I don't think you're going to notice it on the types of apps that you might be running on this phone. Now, at the time that I'm recording this review, these phones are coming with Android 6.0 Marshmallow, but there will be a Nougat update coming to this phone as well as the other two phones in the G4 product line. I think the other two models are getting the update before this one, but it will eventually run Nougat, so there is some degree of commitment to updating this phone. I know it's been a topic of discussion on a lot of the Android forums lately about how some Moto phones are getting updates and others are not. This one at least is getting the 7.0 Nougat update at some point in the near future. There aren't any special Motorola features on this phone insofar as voice search or any sensors or anything like that. They do have a pretty cool feature that if you swipe up from the bottom, it makes the screen smaller so that you can get access to the entire screen with a single hand. So as you can see here, it's hard to get over to the other edge of the screen here if I'm just using the phone one-handed. So I can swipe up here from the bottom and actually interact with the entire phone within a little window here. It's probably harder to type when you've got a keyboard up in that little space, but you can get at every inch of the screen in that space, and then all you need to do is just hit a dark area of the screen here to bring back the full-size image. So that was kind of a neat feature to see on there. Battery life is going to get you through a day depending on what you do and how far you are from the cell tower. So I have a spot in my office where the cell tower is pretty weak, and therefore the battery did not last as long because the phone was trying to transmit further to get to it. But generally it should do pretty much a full day, provided you're not watching too many videos or playing too many games or something like that on there. The sound out of the speaker isn't too bad either. It's pretty loud. It's not stereo or anything, but it's loud enough for making a good speakerphone conversation, and overall sounds pretty good for watching videos and whatnot as well. But of course, for music, you probably want to use a Bluetooth headset or plug something into that headphone jack. So that is the Moto G4 Play, and the big value proposition on this one is its carrier compatibility, because there are a number of great unlocked phones that you can get for around this price point that might actually offer better features and performance, but those phones don't work on Sprint or Verizon, and this one does. So if you're in the market for something inexpensive for a family member or for you who's a pretty casual smartphone user, I think you'll be quite pleased with how well this phone does the things that people do on smartphones these days. I also think it'll be a good choice for parents of kids who don't want to send their kid off to school with an $800 smartphone every day. This $99 phone will do just fine. It'll run Minecraft and most of the casual games out there, including Pokemon Go and others, without too many problems. So definitely a good value if you're looking to avoid the risk of having to replace an $800 phone every couple of weeks after the kid drops it. This one is a lot less expensive to replace. Now, if you go with the $99 version on Amazon, it will be subsidized with ads, and I covered how that works in my review of the Blue R1 phone, which I'll put down below in the video description. So if you're okay with some of those ads popping up on the lock screen and a few other places, probably go for that. If not, an extra $50 to the $150 price tag will give you an ad-free experience, and you can get that $150 phone from Amazon or from Motorola directly. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Eric. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.